What's going on, everybody? Kalip's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where we'll be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So my first reason why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 is the battery. Now with this phone, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 10-watt fast charging. Now on one hand, with the charging, I don't even know if 10-watt fast charging is even fast charging anymore. But regardless, in my experience, while definitely not having the best charging speeds ever, this phone does still charge decently fast. So for most people, you're probably not going to have an issue with that. But despite not having the most impressive charging speeds, the battery size really makes up for this. With the 5000 mAh battery, in the US at least, this is pretty much the largest battery you can get. So with this phone, you can expect to get really good battery life and longevity. If you're in a situation where maybe you don't get a chance to charge your phone during the day, but you still need to use it a decent amount, in that kind of situation, a phone like this that has such a good battery is going to be a great choice. And in addition to this, down the road as the battery degrades, which all batteries do, with a 5000 mAh battery, as opposed to say a 3 or 4000 mAh battery, the battery degrading is definitely not going to really affect you nearly as quickly. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a longer time, then a phone like the Moto G Play 2023 that has such a large battery is definitely going to be a great choice. So in general, if you are looking for a more entry-level affordable phone that has a really good battery, then you're really not going to go wrong with this phone. My second reason why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 is the display. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.5-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 270, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So with this phone at 6.5 inches, while not being anything unusual per se, we definitely are still getting a decently large display here. So if you're consuming a lot of content, maybe you're watching videos, browsing the web, using social media, stuff like that, in general, you will get a good experience. And one thing I do really appreciate about this phone is that with the front-facing camera, instead of having a water drop notch that's honestly kind of intrusive and usually ends up kind of cutting into the display, this phone has a hole punch design instead, which granted, it still does kind of get in the display a little, but compared to the water drop notch that most phones in this price range have, it's definitely not nearly as bad. In addition to this, with a 20:9 aspect ratio, we are getting a pretty tall and narrow form factor here. So if you're doing something like reading, browsing the web, or using social media, for example, with a form factor like this, you can fit more content on the screen without having to scroll as much. Then in landscape mode, if you're doing something like watching videos, looking at photos, playing games, you're gonna get a nicer, more immersive experience, and things are gonna look a bit more cinematic. So yeah, despite being pretty common, the size and dimensions we're getting here are definitely good. And even aside from this, while the image quality isn't the best in the world, compared to most phones in this price range, I do think it is pretty good. Despite only having a 720p resolution, I do think the image in general looks pretty nice. The colors are nice, the brightness are really good, and while this phone is probably still going to be pretty hard to see out in the sun, for example, in a room like this, if you're doing normal activities like watching videos, looking at social media, whatever you might be doing on your phone, things are going to be decently easy to see. And as you can see, the colors do look pretty bold and bright. And if that wasn't enough, with a 90Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother. And while this isn't really going to make a huge difference, it's not like a groundbreaking feature or anything, it will make using the phone feel a little bit more premium in general. So overall, if you are looking for an entry-level phone that has a nice display, then for what it is, this phone is going to be a great choice. My third reason why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 is the design and build quality. Now, I will say the bezels could be a little bit thinner, especially this bottom one, but in general, aside from literally just that one issue, as far as the design goes, everything else about this phone is actually really nice. Sure, it's not the most premium look ever, but this is a $169 phone, and probably, depending on what happens with deals and carriers and stuff like that in the future, most people are going to be paying a lot less. So considering this is really not a premium phone by any means, I do think it actually looks pretty nice. The bezels are decently thin on the sides. The display again looks really nice. The back has a matte material that, while not being really unique, doesn't pick up any fingerprints, or at least doesn't pick them up too badly in most lighting. And again, like I said earlier, the hole punch front-facing camera is really nice. Definitely a lot less intrusive than a water drop notch. So yeah, for what it is, the Moto G Play 2023 does actually look pretty nice. And aside from the actual aesthetic design, the materials are pretty good too. Like pretty much every phone that's not a flagship phone, the Moto G Play 2023 is made entirely of plastic, except obviously the glass display. But again, aside from this, everything else is plastic. But the thing is here, it's actually really good quality plastic. It doesn't feel like it's gonna fall apart. The build quality is good, the buttons are solid, and surprisingly, the phone does have a decent amount of weight to it. So overall, if you're looking for a more entry-level phone that doesn't look and feel premium per se, but still has a nice modern design and really good build quality, then in that case, the Moto G Play will be a good choice for you. My fourth reason why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 is the headphone jack. Now this might sound kinda odd, but keep in mind, at this point in 2023, lots of manufacturers, including larger ones like Samsung and some of the lesser ones like Blue, are starting to do away with their headphone jacks, and although it hasn't really reached the super entry-level phones like this yet, seeing how things are going, I imagine it's really just a matter of time. But luckily with the Moto G Play, we are still getting a normal 3.5mm headphone jack, so if you do like to use normal wired headphones, then definitely keep in mind this phone still does actually have a headphone jack, so you're not going to be forced to use wireless headphones or an adapter. And finally, my fifth reason why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 is the camera quality. Now to give you a quick rundown of the camera setup here, with this phone, we got a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 16-megapixel main camera, a 2-megapixel macro camera, and a 2-megapixel depth sensing camera. So as far as features go, it is decent. Unfortunately, we're not getting an ultra-wide camera, but a lot of phones in this price range don't have one anyway, so it's not really that unusual. That being said though, for the actual photo quality, with this phone, it's actually a lot better than I expected. Sure, compared to something like a mid-range phone, like a Moto G Stylus for example, it's not going to be nearly that good. But for a really affordable entry-level phone, if you're just taking a few photos here and there for maybe social media or your own memories, then unlike a lot of phones in this price range that have honestly really bad cameras, the Moto G Play will definitely get the job done. To give you an idea of what it can do, here's some pictures taken with the main camera, and again, for what it is, I definitely think these photos did come out really well. Sure, the camera is definitely not top of the line studio quality, but of course I really didn't expect that from a phone like this. So considering that again, this is a really affordable entry-level option, if you do want a phone like this, but you still want a nice camera that can take some decent photos every now and then I do think compared to the vast majority of phones in this price range, this phone is going to be one of the better options. But those were my 5 reasons why you should buy the Motorola Moto G Play 2023. In general, despite not being the most impressive device with a bunch of crazy features or anything, I do think for what it is, if you are looking for a really affordable entry-level smartphone for more basic activities, the Moto G Play 2023 is honestly going to be a pretty good option. Now once again, if you do want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where I will be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalip's Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.